So, my name's Eric. I'm 35. My wife, Allison, is 33. We've been married a little over 7 years now. We met in a pretty mundane way, nothing cinematic or wild. It was a volunteer event at the animal shelter. I was there because I'd lost a bet to my sister and had to do something good for humanity, as she put it. Allison, on the other hand, was a regular. She was walking one of the older dogs when we ended up chatting at the water station. She had this mix of sarcasm and sincerity that kind of caught me off guard. You don't meet people like that often, warm, but not overly eager, smart without showing off. She wore this old hoodie with a faded cartoon cat on it, like she didn't care about anything but still looked effortlessly put together. I offered to help her with one of the larger dogs, and we ended up walking two of them side by side, just talking about everything from books to takeout orders to our mutual hatred of morning traffic. It felt weirdly easy. We went for coffee that night. I remember thinking afterward that she was someone who made everything seem a little more interesting, even the boring stuff. That never really changed. We got married 2 years after we met. Courthouse wedding, simple dinner with friends afterward. Neither of us are big into spectacle. What mattered was the commitment, not the flowers or the guest list. Now we live in a quiet neighborhood just outside Raleigh. It's one of those places where the houses all look a little too similar, but the neighbors are friendly, and there's a walking trail behind our street that winds past a small lake. We bought a 2-story colonial-style home with a little porch swing and enough space to host friends without tripping over each other. Allison put her touch on the place. She's all about cozy textures, warm lighting, 100 throw pillows. I handle the bills and fix what I can. I work as an accountant for a shipping company. Nothing glamorous, but I'm good at it. Allison works in marketing for a regional spa chain. She's one of those people who knows how to say the right thing without it sounding fake. People just like her. She makes friends wherever she goes, which balances out my more reserved nature. Our life is comfortable, not in a bad way, in a way that feels earned. We cook dinner together most nights, or at least take turns. We both like to be up early on weekends, grab coffee, go for walks, just ease into the day. It's a good life. At least, it always felt that way. We don't have kids. Not because we didn't want them, we talked about it a lot, but we just never got around to making a decision one way or the other. Life got busy, and then comfortable, and at some point, we sort of left the question hanging. Lately, we've talked more about maybe getting a dog first and seeing how that feels. That was the plan, at least, start with a rescue, see if we could be responsible pet parents, maybe work our way up from there. Allison is the kind of person who thrives in chaos. Not in a dramatic way, but she's always juggling something. Work deadlines, book club meetings, plans with her college girlfriends, yoga on Saturdays, Pinteresting kitchen renovations we're probably never going to do. She always says she likes to keep her mind moving forward. And she does, constantly. I'm the opposite. I like routines. I like spreadsheets. I do our taxes by hand, just because I enjoy the process. My ideal night is a home-cooked meal, a good movie, and maybe folding laundry while we talk about what we'd do if we won the lottery. I've always found peace in the predictable. Somehow, that balance worked. Or at least, it seemed to. She'd pull me out of my shell, drag me to social events, and I'd reel her back when she started planning 3 trips in 1 month. She laughs a lot. Like, really laughs, and I always love that. No matter how serious life got, she could always find something funny in it. We each have our corners of the house. She turned the spare bedroom into her little home office/yoga zone/creative cave. It's full of candles, plants, and a corkboard that changes weekly. I have a small desk in the den, mostly just for bills and the occasional fantasy football draft. But we spend most of our time in the kitchen or on the porch swing with our legs tangled up, talking about nothing in particular. We don't fight much. When we do, it's about dumb stuff, forgetting to unload the dishwasher, or someone taking too long to get ready when we're already late. But we've never gone to bed angry. That was always our rule. Even if we were tired or stubborn, one of us would eventually crack and make a joke or pull the other in for a hug. She still kisses me on the forehead every morning before I leave for work. Every single day, and I always made a point to kiss her hand when I got home. It became our ritual. So yeah, from the outside, and honestly, from the inside too, we look like that couple you just assume has it all figured out. Allison and I have always had this unspoken rhythm. We weren't the kind of couple who needed constant date nights or extravagant gifts to feel connected. We found connection in the small things, the way she'd rub my shoulders while I brushed my teeth in the morning, or how I'd always start the coffee 10 minutes before her alarm went off so she could smell it waking up. Our world was simple, and it suited us. Our careers never clashed. I work as a senior accountant at a logistics company downtown. I've been there for almost a decade. It's steady, it pays well, and the hours aren't brutal. Allison's job is more fast-paced. She works in brand strategy for a spa and wellness chain that's been expanding into new cities, so her weeks are packed with campaign pitches, meetings, and marketing strategy calls. Sometimes she'd be on Zoom at night, still working, and I'd bring her a snack without saying anything. Other times, I'd be stuck balancing year-end numbers while she lit candles and read novels on the couch with one leg draped over mine. We rarely took vacations, but when we did, we liked road trips. Asheville, Savannah, Cape Cod once, years back. We both wanted to go out west, maybe do a proper national parks loop, but we kept pushing it back. Always some reason. Work projects, family commitments, a tight budget. Still, we'd talk about it when we had a glass of wine on the porch. One day, Allison has always had a close-knit group of girlfriends from college, 3 of them. They do a girls' weekend once or twice a year, usually somewhere with a spa and wine tastings. I've always encouraged it. I liked that she kept those friendships alive, and it gave me a few days of total solitude to catch up on books, rearrange the garage, or just stretch out across the bed and sleep diagonally. Socially, she's the more outgoing one by far. She's the kind of person who can turn small talk with a cashier into an exchange of skincare tips or travel stories. Me? I'm the guy who triple checks the grocery list and still forgets the eggs. But somehow, we always found each other in the middle. I'd drag her to a documentary screening. She'd drag me to a pop-up food truck fair. I'd groan about it on the way there, then secretly enjoy myself. We had game nights with friends, the occasional dinner party, holidays with her sister in Charlotte. We even kept a little savings account for a hypothetical kitchen remodel. She had a folder full of clippings and sketches, always dreaming up improvements for someday. There was a comfort in our routine, a sense of safety. I think that's why I never saw what was coming. But I'm getting ahead of myself. I remember the exact moment Allison brought it up. It was a Tuesday evening, right after dinner. I was rinsing plates. She was leaning against the counter, sipping her wine. One of those casual post-meal silences we'd fallen into lately. Comfortable, unhurried. She said it like it was no big deal. So, the girls and I are thinking about doing a trip. Just a little getaway. Probably somewhere warm. I turned off the tap. End of the month. Just a long weekend. I think we all need it. Work's been a nightmare, and everyone's been stressed. I nodded, drying my hands. Yeah, makes sense. Where to? She shrugged. We're between a few spots. Maybe Charleston. Or Key West. Flights are cheapest there. She looked at me carefully, like she was trying to read my reaction, but I didn't think much of it at the time. I was already calculating what we had in the vacation fund. Well, I said, you should do it. Seriously, you've earned it. Her face relaxed, and she gave me that look, the one that always made me feel like I'd done something good just by being decent. She walked over and wrapped her arms around my waist, resting her head against my chest. You're the best, she said. I'll pay for as much as I can, but if you could help cover the Airbnb or whatever part one can't swing, I'll pay you back next month. Don't worry about it, I said. We've got money saved. Use it. She pulled back and smiled at me like I'd just solved a problem she didn't know how to ask me about. Thank you, babe. Seriously. We didn't talk more about it that night. She said she'd finalize the details with the girls and send me the receipts once they booked things. It felt normal. I even joked later about her getting too sunburned to go back to work, and she just rolled her eyes and told me not to jinx it. Over the next week, she seemed lighter, more energized. She spent hours on her phone, texting in group chats, scrolling through resort photos, bouncing between outfit choices. I assumed it was all planning. She told me that her friend Kelly found a gorgeous rental just a short walk from the beach. I asked her to send me the link. She said she would, but forgot. Twice. I let it go. She left on a Friday morning. I packed her suitcase in the car and hugged her goodbye in the driveway. She looked great. Oversized sunglasses, flowy linen shirt, travel mug in hand. Don't work too hard while I'm gone, she teased. I laughed. Only enough to fund your margaritas. She smiled, kissed me quickly, then got in the car and drove off. I watched until she turned the corner. And that was that. Or so I thought. Allison left Friday morning, and by Friday evening, the house already felt quieter than usual, not just physically, but emotionally. She always brought a kind of energy into our space that I didn't realize I leaned on until it was gone. It wasn't loneliness, exactly. It was more like a strange echo, like I kept expecting to hear her walking upstairs or talking to someone on speakerphone. She texted me around 7:30 p.m. that night. Landed. Place is gorgeous. I'll send pics in the morning, yellow heart. I texted back. Glad you made it safe. Enjoy it. You need the break. And I meant it. I really did. But then the next morning came, and there weren't any photos. No update. No funny group selfie. No beachside mimosa pic. Nothing. I waited, figuring maybe they were sleeping in or getting settled. Around 11 a.m., I sent a simple, "Everything okay?" She replied 2 hours later. "Sorry. No signal by the water. We're out now. It's beautiful. Miss you." Fair enough. I didn't press. Saturday night passed, then most of Sunday. I kept expecting more. A story about dinner, a snapshot of a sunset, a wish you were here moment. Something. But instead, I got this string of short, vague messages. Just got back? Long day. Phone died. Charging now. We might do a boat tour tomorrow. Not sure yet. All reasonable. None of it alarming. But I don't know. Something about the tone didn't feel like her. It wasn't the way she usually texted me. Normally, when she was with her friends, I'd get stream of consciousness updates, inside jokes I didn't understand, 20 photos of the same appetizer. This time, there was a kind of distance I couldn't name. Sunday night, I went into our bedroom and found one of her earrings on the nightstand. Just sitting there by itself, the left one of her favorite silver hoops. She never forgets those, never. I sat down on the bed and looked at it in my palm. It shouldn't have meant anything. People forget stuff. I do it all the time. But I don't know, it just added to the weird quiet in the house. Monday morning, I was back at work. Emails, spreadsheets, usual stuff. Around 10:30, I passed my boss, Richard, in the hallway. He gave me a nod, that dry, half smirk of his. He didn't say anything, just kept walking. I didn't think much of it in the moment, except he wasn't supposed to be in the office. I'd gotten an internal calendar update last week saying he'd be out all week for executive travel. Maybe his plans changed. Later that afternoon, I double-checked that email. Still said the same thing. Again, not a big deal. Things shift, especially in upper management. But for some reason, it stuck with me. That, combined with Allison's distance, with the odd way her messages felt like they were on delay, like she was curating everything carefully instead of just being herself, it all started to sit heavy in my gut. I didn't know anything. There was nothing to go on. But for the first time in our relationship, I started to feel like I didn't quite know what she was doing or why I wasn't hearing about it. And that unfamiliar silence between us, it was starting to sound a lot like something I didn't want to name. Allison got back from her trip late Monday night. I didn't see her until Tuesday morning because I was already asleep when she came in, or at least I pretended to be. I'd left the hallway light on and heard her come through the front door around 11:45 p.m. The sound of her keys dropping into the bowl by the door, her shoes coming off, the careful way she always moved when she didn't want to wake me. But something about her silence felt different. I don't know how else to put it. I just laid there with my eyes closed, listening to every small sound like it was a message I couldn't quite translate. In the morning, she was already up and dressed when I came into the kitchen. She looked rested, 10 even, hair still damp from a shower. She was standing at the stove flipping eggs like it was any other Tuesday, like she hadn't been gone for 4 days that I still couldn't picture. When she turned and smiled at me, I felt this momentary sense of guilt for feeling distant, but it was there all the same. I kissed her on the cheek, asked how the trip was, and she launched into a well-rehearsed summary. Relaxing, much needed, super low-key, she said. We didn't do half the things we planned. Mostly just hung out, walked the beach, ate too much. Kelly got sun poisoning because she forgot to reapply. She laughed at that. I listened. I nodded. I tried to picture it all, them clinking glasses, lounging under umbrellas, gossiping about work, but for some reason I couldn't see it in my mind. There were no photos on her phone, at least none she showed me. Just one she posted to Instagram. Her legs on a lounge chair, ocean in the distance, a paperback on her lap. That could have been anywhere, anytime. I felt ridiculous even thinking that. But still, what struck me more than anything was how easily she moved past it. The trip, I mean. Usually she'd unpack it all, go on for days, retelling funny stories, quoting people, making plans to meet up again next month. But this time, it was like the trip had been filed away already, locked up, and put on a shelf. She was oddly quiet about it. Detached, almost. That week at work, I noticed something else. Richard, my boss, wasn't around. At least not visibly. I didn't see him in the office, and his calendar, still marked executive travel, stayed unchanged. I didn't think too much of it at first. I assumed he was just working remotely or caught up in external meetings. But on Thursday, I overheard someone in the break room say they ran into him at the airport over the weekend. I asked casually, "Oh, where was he headed?" The guy, one of the project leads, just shrugged. Didn't say. Wasn't a rush. Just looked tired. It wasn't some smoking gun. Not even close. But for some reason, it stuck in my head for the rest of the day like a pebble in my shoe. I kept telling myself it was all coincidence. The vague texts, the weird energy since she got back, Richard's travel. But then I started wondering why I was even connecting those dots in the first place. I'd never been the paranoid type. I trusted Allison. She's never given me any solid reason not to. And yet, here I was, parsing conversations, playing timelines back in my head, paying attention to where her eyes went when we talked. That Friday night, we ordered in from her favorite Thai place and watched a show we'd been meaning to catch up on. She curled up next to me, head on my shoulder, fingers tracing little circles on my knee like she always did. I stared at the screen, barely hearing the dialogue, wondering if I was losing my mind or just starting to notice things I'd always ignored. Because the truth is, there wasn't any one thing that made me suspicious. It was the lack of things. No stories, no details, no leftover receipts or random souvenirs in her bag, no sand on her shoes. It was like she'd erased the whole trip from her body, as if it never happened or happened somewhere else entirely. Still, I didn't ask anything. I didn't snoop. I didn't accuse. I just sat there, eating pad thai and smiling when she laughed. And all the while, something small and sharp lodged itself deeper inside me. Not quite a thought, not yet a belief, but something I couldn't shake. I'd love to say I found out on my own, that I pieced it all together like some clever detective and cornered them with undeniable logic. But that's not how it happened. The truth didn't sneak up on me. It walked right into my living room, looked me in the eye, and lit the whole damn thing on fire. It started on a Tuesday. Just another normal, nothing special workday. I got home around 6. The house was quiet. Allison wasn't home yet. I figured she was running late, maybe stuck in traffic or grabbing groceries. I kicked off my shoes, changed out of my work clothes, poured myself a drink. I was halfway through replying to an email when I heard her car pull into the driveway. But it wasn't just her. I looked through the front window and saw 2 people get out, Allison and Richard. My boss. There was no mistaking him. Same press shirt, same arrogant gait. He didn't look surprised to be here. In fact, he looked like he'd been here before. Allison came in first, like she was walking into a hotel lobby, casual, detached. Richard followed, smiling like he was already in control of the room. I stood there, still holding my phone, like an idiot who'd missed the first half of a joke and was about to get hit with the punchline. "Hey babe," she said, setting her purse down. "Surprise." "Yeah," I said. "That's one word for it." Richard stepped forward and offered a handshake like we were about to have a performance review. "Eric," he said. I figured it was time we all just cleared the air. I didn't shake his hand. Allison moved closer to him. I watched, in real time, as she stood half a step behind him, like he was her shield. Or her choice. "I know this is a lot," she said, "but I'm tired of pretending." It was that sentence that did it. I'm tired of pretending. I looked from her to him, then back to her again. "So this is real?" I asked. "You and him." She crossed her arms, defensively. "Don't act surprised. You've been distant for months." My jaw clenched. "I've been distant. You vanished for a weekend and came back acting like I was furniture." Richard raised a hand like he was moderating a meeting. "Look, this doesn't have to get ugly." I laughed, the kind of laugh you do when you're trying not to scream. "You're sleeping with my wife and firing me from my job, and you want to keep it civil?" That was the moment. He blinked. "How did you?" "You just told me." He looked at Allison. She looked down. And then, without flinching, she said the one thing I didn't think I'd ever hear from her. "Eric, You've been stuck for years. This job, this house, everything. She paused, comfortable. And I just can't live like that anymore. Comfortable, I repeated, nodding slowly. Right, that's what this is about. And then Richard, as if on cue, stepped in and sealed it. I think it's best if we make a clean break. Effective immediately, you're released from your position at the company. HR will be in touch this week. I said nothing. I just stared at him, at her, at whatever this thing between them was, twisted, smug, hollow. I felt something in me unravel. Not violently. Just finally. Allison looked at me like she wanted me to yell, to break something, to fall apart. But I didn't. I just nodded once and said, "Thanks for the clarity." And then I walked upstairs, closed the door behind me, and let the weight of it all settle in. I didn't leave the house that night. I didn't scream. I didn't chase after them or throw her things into the street. I didn't drink. I just sat there in the dark of our bedroom, staring at the closet door, thinking about how much of my life had been spent keeping that space organized, suits on one side, her sundresses on the other, everything in its place. All of it so carefully maintained. And now, with one smug smirk from Richard and a blank stare from Allison, it all felt like a bad stage set. Like I was the only one who ever believed it was real. I called in sick to work the next morning, though it didn't matter. Technically, I didn't have a job to go back to. I waited for the official termination notice, and when it arrived that afternoon, I sat there reading it twice, not out of disbelief, but because I couldn't stop my hands from shaking. The language was cold, sterile, like someone was dismissing a defective appliance. 10 years at that company. 10 years of showing up early, staying late, cleaning up everyone else's messes. Gone with a signature and a PDF attachment. Fired by the man sleeping with my wife, in my home, while I paid the mortgage. It was somewhere between reading the termination letter and folding the last of the laundry that I stopped feeling sorry for myself. It was like someone reached into my chest and turned a dial. The sadness dimmed, and in its place came something sharper, colder, and far more focused. I wasn't going to scream or beg or crumble. I was going to dismantle every single thing they thought they had control over, piece by piece, and legally. Because if there's one thing 10 years as a company accountant teaches you, it's where the bones are buried. The next morning, I got dressed like I had somewhere to be, pressed shirt, watch on my wrist, clean shave. I walked into the office one last time to collect my things, and on the way out, I stopped by the finance department. I still had access to the server drives. Nobody had revoked it yet. Rookie mistake. I took only what I needed. Backup copies of the past 5 years of quarterly tax filings, payroll inconsistencies I had flagged months ago but was told to ignore, records that didn't match what we submitted to the IRS. I didn't download anything illegally. I simply emailed the discrepancies to myself. As someone still listed as an internal auditor, they hadn't processed the separation yet. I was covered. Then I made a quiet visit to the state tax board. It took less than a week. Less than 1 week before Richard's empire began to sweat. I didn't do it out of spite. Okay, not just out of spite. I did it because I knew, with every cell in my body, that someone like him thought he was untouchable, that he could sleep with his employee's wife, fire that employee, and walk off into the sunset with a tan and no consequences. I wanted him to feel vulnerable, the way I felt when he stood in my living room pretending to be civilized. But I wasn't done. You see, Richard had a wife. Her name is Valerie. We'd met once at a company holiday party. Polite small talk. That was it. I never gave her a second thought. But now, I looked her up, found her work address, and sent her a message. Not angry. Not anonymous. Just a clear, concise note asking if she had a moment to talk, privately. She called me the next day. I told her everything. At first, she didn't believe me. I expected that. But I'd already attached the screenshots, calendar matches, dates, the Instagram photo Allison posted that synced perfectly with Richard's private flight log. She was quiet. For a long time. Then she said, "He's done this before. I knew he was doing it again. I just didn't know it was you. We met for coffee. Just once. But that's all it took." 2 weeks later, after Richard's suspension and the internal audit that was now well underway, I got a message from Valerie. "You around tonight?" She came over around 9. No pretense. No excuses. Just 2 people who had both been lied to, standing in the wreckage of the same betrayal. We didn't say much. We didn't need to. She kissed me first. I didn't stop her. And when it was over, I asked her if she regretted it. She shook her head and said, I wanted this to hurt him. I want you to send it to her. And I did. I sent Allison the video that night. No caption, no note, just the footage. It wasn't graphic, just enough to show Valerie and me together in the house Allison used to call hers. I didn't block her right away. I wanted her to see it, to process it. An hour later, the text started. What is this? You're being disgusting. How could you? Please talk to me. I didn't respond. I read every word, then muted the thread and left my phone face down on the table. There wasn't anything left to say. She made her choice. Now she could live with it. There's a kind of quiet that comes after everything burns down. It's not peace exactly, not at first. It's more like emptiness that hasn't been filled yet. But that emptiness is clean, wide, open. And once the smoke cleared, once the text stopped coming in, once Richard's company was under audit and my marriage was officially dissolved, I realized something. I had room to breathe again. I moved out of the house 2 weeks after serving Allison with the divorce papers. I didn't want it anymore. Not because of the memories, though there were plenty of those, but because I didn't like who I had become inside those walls. I had spent years shrinking myself to keep the peace, second-guessing my instincts, writing off distance as stress or routine. I needed a space that didn't echo with old questions. So I rented a modest one-bedroom place across town. Nothing fancy, hardwood floors, creaky cabinets, a little balcony that overlooks a row of quiet trees. It's the kind of place that feels honest, unpolished. Mine. I bought new dishes, got rid of the ones she picked out. I started cooking again, not just heating things up. I read more, slept better. I didn't even realize how much of my sleep had been restless until it wasn't anymore. I found a new job, smaller firm, less money, but better people. Honest people. People who care more about good work than polished smiles and empty promises. It felt strange at first to walk into a new office with no history behind me. No baggage. Just a clean slate. But I think that's what I needed, to build something without ghosts in the room. And then, a few months later, I met someone. Her name's Marissa. We met at a bookstore downtown, of all places, reaching for the same paperback at the same time. I pulled my hand back, told her to go ahead. She said, "You were here first." I told her, "I've read it already." She smiled and said, "Liar." That's how it started. We talked for 20 minutes in the aisle and ended up getting coffee around the corner. She's different from Allison in almost every way. Softer around the edges, but sharper underneath. She doesn't play social games. She says what she means, even when it's uncomfortable. I didn't go looking for anything. I wasn't trying to fill a void. But somehow, something real found its way in. We've been seeing each other for 5 months now. And a few weeks ago, she told me she was pregnant. It was quiet when she said it. No big announcement, no dramatic pause. Just the two of us on the couch, her hand resting on her stomach like it had always belonged there. I didn't say anything at first. I just reached over, took her hand, and let the moment settle into me. I don't know what kind of father I'll be. I don't know what kind of future we're walking into. But for the first time in a long time, it doesn't scare me. I didn't tell Allison. I don't plan to. She still tries to contact me sometimes. Short bursts of guilt or nostalgia. Maybe hope. I don't respond. I don't know her anything. And as for Richard, he lost his position at the company. The audit revealed enough to make his continued employment a liability. Last I heard, he was doing freelance consulting out of a rented office suite in a strip mall. Valerie filed for divorce. Quietly. She and I haven't spoken since the night we burned it all down together, and I think that's exactly the way it should be. Sometimes you don't get closure in a single conversation or a final fight. Sometimes closure is just the absence of noise, the choice not to engage anymore. That's where I am now. Not angry, not sad, just forward-facing. So here I am. It's been just over a year since Allison walked through the front door with Richard behind her. 1 year since my world cracked open in the middle of my own living room. I think about that moment sometimes. Not with rage anymore. Not with pain, either. It's more like a scar I run my thumb over. Not to remember the injury, but to remind myself that it healed. A lot has changed. My life now is smaller, simpler, quieter, but it's also fuller in the ways that count. Marissa is 6 months along, and every morning starts with her curled up beside me, one hand on her belly, the other wrapped around mine. We talk about names, nursery colors, what we'll tell our kid about the kind of love that holds firm and the kind that doesn't. I'm not afraid of being a father anymore. I used to worry I'd carry the weight of what happened into whatever came next. But the further I've walked from that old life, the lighter I've become. Allison hasn't reached out in months. The last message was short. I miss who we were. I didn't respond. Because the truth is, I miss it too. Not her, not the marriage, but the version of myself I was in the beginning. Hopeful. Steady. The guy who thought love alone was enough to keep two people together. But life teaches you differently. It shows you that trust is a living thing. Not something you declare once, but something you keep choosing. Every day. And once someone lets it die, there's no resurrecting it. I don't wish her harm. I don't wish Richard harm either. If anything, I hope they both have to sit in the silence they created. I hope they realize that shortcuts come with a price, and that betrayal leaves a stain you can't wipe off just by running faster. I've come to understand something I didn't back then, something I needed to learn the hard way. Sometimes, people don't destroy your life. They simply set fire to the version of it you had no business staying in. And when the smoke clears, you're left standing with nothing but truth and a chance to begin again. I took that chance. I'm still taking it. One day at a time. There's no dramatic ending to this story. No perfect justice. No clean revenge arc. Just a man who lost everything that wasn't meant for him and found something real on the other side. If you're reading this and you're in the middle of it, if something feels off, if your gut is whispering while your heart is still pleading, listen to yourself. And if you've already been through it, you know what I mean when I say, it doesn't end with heartbreak. Sometimes it begins there.